Hello everyone, today I'm going to be making a piece of ephemera using a junk mail envelope. I can't remember where I got the idea for this to make the template. I've been having a look online to see if I could remember whose video it was, but I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was. So if you've seen this technique before and you know who it was, then please comment down below with whoever it was so that they can get a bit of the credit and people can check out their channel. So I was just using the flat side of a crayon and just doing what you used to do at primary school and rubbing over the top with another piece of paper to create this outline, and that just gives me a template for cutting out. So I can see all of the edges, so I don't even need to do any measuring really at this point, and it gives me a clear indication of where that window is going to be. And then I can use a small pair of scissors to cut out the envelope, to cut out the window rather. It will work best if you're quite careful with this bit of cutting, because you don't want the junk mail envelope to show through. Well, at least I don't at this point in time. So rather than cut the window too large, I would rather cut it too small, if anything. But you can try and get it spot on, and by some miracle this was pretty spot on when I did it. So now you've got a stencil or a template that you can use to create a new envelope covering. I want this piece of paper that you can see now to be covering the back and the front of the envelope. So I'm just measuring the size to make sure that it'll fit over the top of it, and I'm doing it as a double width so that it can fold round the back and curve all the way around to the front. And then scoring this line will just make sure that that folds easily on the closed edge of the envelope. I forgot to mention before that the envelope was torn open, and I just cut that torn edge off completely so that it gave me a nice smooth finish to work with. So the envelope is open, but it is nice and flat. So I'm just measuring this up and making sure that everything is aligned, using a bone folder to squash out those creases because they were slightly off center, and then that gives me a full covering. And now this is when you can use that template that you made. So I would recommend tracing it out on the back of your design paper so that any pencil lines can't be seen at the front, and then you can use a small pair of scissors, poke them through very carefully, and then trim out that window shape. This can be a bit of a fiddly job if you're using a thicker piece of card, but as I said before, if you make the window smaller rather than larger, then that has more chance of covering over the white envelope or whatever colour the envelope is that you're using. But as you can see, this matched up quite well. And that just allows us to still use that piece of plastic which covers the window. And then it adds an extra bit of dimension and interest to your journal page or to your piece of ephemera. Now I did ink all the way around, but I've cut most of that out of this video to save you the trouble. And once it's all inked, then you can glue that front piece down. It's a good idea to get plenty of glue near to the window, but just be careful not to smear it all over the plastic. We want to get this piece of covering glued down nice and tightly so that when you open up the pocket pouch, then you aren't lifting multiple layers and peeling them back. If it's glued down carefully, then it will all move as one piece of paper. Sometimes the insides of junk mail envelopes are an interesting pattern and you want to include them in the journal, but not in this case. I wanted to cover over that in a you see where that grey sort of pattern is in the window. I wanted to cover that with something that coordinated with the rest of the journal. So that's why I'm cutting this piece down to size, and that will be inserted and glued down. So I'm just measuring well, kind of measuring, kind of just doing it by eye, a piece that will fit inside, and not only will that show through when the pocket is empty, but also when you open up the pocket you'll be able to see that pretty pattern inside. So I was just checking the size in here to make sure that it fits, and you can see how much nicer that looks when it coordinates. It was at this point that I decided that I wanted to use the back flap that I created as part of the ephemera. I was originally going to stick it down as well onto the back of the envelope and just have it as a one whole piece, but this way I've got it as a bifold. Is it a bifold? I think, but no, yeah, bifold. And I realised that I could just cover the back of the envelope with a separate piece entirely, and then it would give me this sort of booklet effect. So at the moment I am just sticking in that covering that I was making for the inside of the envelope. And then I was able to cover over the back of the envelope just with that other piece. Just gave it a little trim to make sure it fit nicely and evenly, and then I inked all around the edges of that as well. I did ink the whiteness of the envelope to make sure that it coordinated with the rest. I didn't want it to be too starkly white when I was going for a vintage theme. Again, plenty of glue was needed. And then it was at this point that I remembered that I wanted to use another envelope that I had from a Christmas card that I got through the post, which had no name on or anything, so I thought, oh, that can be used to make a flap. But unfortunately I've stuck that wooden looking piece down. Before it was dry I remembered that I was going to do that, and I peeled it back, and then I was able to stick the envelope in, and I applied more glue to the wooden piece, and then I just inserted the flap between the two pieces of card so that it would make a nice sturdy pull-out piece. Junk mail is great for creating pieces like this, and you can take it as far as you want. You can keep adding envelopes and keep slotting things inside each other until you have a great big mass of flaps and pockets. It's really good fun to make. So I'm weighing those down and letting it dry thoroughly, and then I'm going to use the same trick with the crayon on its side to create a template so that I can create a mat to cover the more complicated side of the envelope. I then cut out the template in the same way as before, and then chose a piece of paper that I would draw around it on. So again, using the reverse side just makes it a little bit neater, gives it a nicer finish. Draw around with pencil and then cut that out. I gave those edges a good inking as well to help it to coordinate even further, and then I just stuck that down on top of those folded pieces of envelope. Just a little brush of ink will take away those harsh white edges. It's a bit more tricky to do when it was inside the envelope. So again, lots of glue is needed to make sure that it sticks completely down, to avoid any edges lifting up. I didn't do it in this video but you could make a little journal card or pop some tags in there or photographs, but for the time being I just left it empty. And then the back side of it would make a nice area to add a photograph or to add a bit of journaling. So I covered it up using this pretty paper. Again, I was just sort of making up the measurements as I went. Just kept trimming it down until it fit. And the way that this flap works, this extra envelope, it can be folded round the front or round the back as well. So it's quite versatile. So I stuck that down as well, and it ties in beautifully. Okay, so there we have the bones of the construction. We've got the main envelope pocket, and then we have the smaller envelope pocket, and then we have the back page, which could be used for anything. You could add more pockets to that, or you can just use it as a space for writing or for adding embellishments and photographs and things. So I just made a large journal card to go inside the pocket, using the same paper pad again. And then that just means that it changes the way that the window pocket looks, depending on what's inside it. In future, I think I would add a little photograph to that journal card, which will poke through and peer out of the window. So I think I'll probably do that when it comes to assembling this journal and decorating it. Thank you very much for watching again, and I shall see you again next time. Bye!